morning and welcome to the GP Power Tools webinar presented today by David Musgrave. He's a Microsoft MVP and the Managing Director of Winthrop Development Consultants. So continuing with the introductions, my name is Ashley Canale. I'm a Client Strategy Manager here with Interdyne Artist. As far as the questions, if you would please put those in the question box down at the right-hand corner. We'll answer those at the end and kind of get those all taken care of at the end, but don't hesitate to ask any questions. Lastly, as far as the recording today, we will be recording the webinar. We'll send that out once it's all done, and we'll send that out afterwards. And at this point, I will pass it over to David. Thank you, David.
So I'm David Musgrave. I'm from Winthrop Development Consultants, and we're going to be showing you GP Power Tools and basically how it solves your pain points. It was originally the support debugging tool when I was at Microsoft, and when I left Microsoft I got the rights to it and kept enhancing it. So some of the things you can do, like if you need logs, you don't have to manually exit GP and make changes to dex.ini. You can just one-click turn on the logging, start logging, and you can get 5 different logs all in one go and email those to whoever you need to send them to. If you need screenshots, instead of having to capture each screen individually, you can just select Capture Screenshots or press Ctrl+S. It'll list all the windows that are open. You can then just say, I want these ones, and click it and email off to whoever it needs to go to. It also sends a whole lot of other information that makes it really easy for support teams to deal with. If you've got any monitors that have these really high resolutions, which most of the modern machines are, if you've got problems with things being hard to read, Power Tools includes options to help Dynamics GP scale correctly and fix font size issues. If you need to contact support and you're running on a terminal server that doesn't have an email client installed, Power Tools has its own email engine that you can use to send information to your administrator and report support cases. If you want to find any window quickly, and I know that Sean loves this one, just press Ctrl+F and it'll bring up the Find Dynamics window. Type in something that you know, for example customer. It'll list all of the places that customer appears in the menus, and then you can find it. Really good because the actual navigation tree of GP is quite big and complex. If you want to know who's editing transactions, basically SOP and POP now will actually show you the user that is editing the transaction. And if you ever need to do a quick calculation inside GP, the latest build of Power Tools has a little calculator that you can pop open. It's touch friendly, it can use the clipboard, and you basically can do any simple arithmetic that you need to do. If you want to know information about where something is stored in a table, if you just to type in something, any one bit of information you know into the resource information window, it'll find it for you, and it's fully multi-dictionary. And it will just find whatever you're looking for. If there's more than one answer for what you're looking for, it does display it now on the right hand side, and you can just click through and choose those to find out where it is. If you're using SQL to produce security reports, you'll probably be using the SY9400 table. That is not populated fully by GP. It does populate some of it, but with Power Tools it puts all of the extra resources in so you can get accurate reports. If you use Power User other than for administration of your system, you can basically say, well, I don't want to use that because that is bypassing security entirely. You can use a super user, which is created by GP Power Tools, and it gives access to everything, but it doesn't bypass the security model. If you want to know what caused a particular security error, just by having Power Tools installed, you will get a full dialog that actually explains what you don't have access to rather than the traditional message it adds onto the end of it, and you can make the security profiler open automatically or open it manually, and it will capture all the details of what you've got, of the error. Plus you can use that even to create roles and tasks by example. If you want to know how security access was granted to something, you can ask the security information window. It will show you the tasks and roles that gave a user access. If they haven't got access, you can expand the system level and it will show you what tasks and roles you need to give them so that they can get access. If you get requests from auditors, you can just use the security information resources and you can select a task, a role, or a user, and it will show you everything that makes up that task, role, or user. So if you need to, you can just export out to Excel a list of everything a particular user has access to. So hold on one second, I'm going to pop out of here. I made one mistake. We kill this thing, go away, and back to the presentation. All right, if you want to remove access without duplicating tasks and roles, you can have two users with exactly the same tasks and roles but use deny-based security and just go in and select which resources they don't have access to. It's basically taking the old style security and sitting it on top of tasks and role security, so between the two of them you can create very detailed security without actually having to duplicate all the tasks and roles. If you need to know what a user has accessed, the security log captures and captures statistics about all of the different things that users are accessing, and if you find a particular resource you can actually click on it and say show me the detail, and it will show you who else has accessed that window or that security resource, and you can see the dates and times of the last 3 times that they've accessed that. So if you want to create security tasks, by example, you can either do that with the security profiler or the security log, whatever that's been captured. You can actually go and then say we'll create a task based on that information. If you want to analyze the security analyzer comes with about 40 different queries. It looks for particular things that we know are security risks, and it basically will allow you to look for things. One of the best ones is that it can compare, using the log, it can compare what a user has actually used versus what they have access to, and you can actually see, have you given them too much access? Maybe you need to cut back some of their access because they're not using what you've given them. If you've ever entered data into a wrong company, PowerTools has the ability to color code companies so that you can actually make sure you know which company you're in. In this case, the bright Barbie pink is for a test company, but you can choose whatever colors you want. There comes with over 100 built-in themes, but you can choose your own color schemes from the 16.7 million colors available. You should be able to find what you want with that. If you've got any companies with long names, you've probably found that you can't read the entire name on the drop-down list on the company switch window or company login window. PowerTools, one checkbox, and we'll extend that out for you so that you can read your long company names. If you have a lot of different companies, PowerTools does allow you to filter the companies, and it allows you to actually reorder the list of the companies so that you can actually put your live companies at the top and your test companies at the bottom, and you can basically reorder it by name, but you can also reorder it by a custom connection if you wish. If you have a password, if you're using password expiry and you've ever had a password expire while you're logged into GP, you'll know that that's a really bad thing. So you can enable a warning, and it can come up how many days before the expiry to warn you and allow you to change it to your user's password. If you've ever lost a window off the screen, PowerTools will, with just one option, make sure that it remembers, well, it brings the windows back onto the screens. It also remembers the position of their last, you can ask it to remember the position of any window so that it will remember that and bring it back to the same position on a per user basis. So this is where the window position memory can be set up, and you can basically, all the common transaction and card windows are in the list, but if you want to add any window from any product to the list, you can make it remember its position. So you can just set where you want it to go and its size as well. So if you drag windows out, it will remember that for you, and it can be different for other users. If you need to log users out of your system, if they hang around in your system and hold licenses up, PowerTools has a automatic logout feature now. It has a few options in it, including the ability to have dual levels, so you can make it more aggressive with the logouts as your license count gets closer to 0, and it even has the ability to save the contents of Windows before attempting to log out, so that it actually does a successful logout and doesn't leave it on the do you want to save dialog. If you want to track your user licenses, you've got the ability for user activity tracking, which can track the logins and logouts of all your users. It captures statistics so that you can see how many times a user is logged in, but it also captures the maximum number of users at any one time, so you can actually get statistics of how close you are coming to your maximum user count. And if you click on whichever bar on the bar chart, it will show you who was logged in at that time. Would allow you to actually see if you've got a user logging in multiple times. If you do have that, you can use the login limits window to set how many sessions a particular user can have, or how many users are allowed into a particular company at any time. There's very flexible options here that you can set overrides for individual users or individual user company combinations. So we've noticed that the wanted to be able to store some additional information against the user, in particular the email address. So this is an additional window which allows you to specify things like what the email address for a user is and what the default site is, and that's used on some of the transaction windows, so it populates the site, but you've got other information that you can store against a particular user. The email address comes in really handy I'll show you in a later stage, but this is the window that's built into the system now by Power Tools to allow you to do that. If you ever want to change DEX to INI settings, you can do that without having to go and visit workstations or multiple terminal servers. You can just set what you want the settings changed to inside this window, and it will be flowed out automatically to the users. If you need a troubleshooter customization, one of the first things they'll ask you to do is turn off third-party products, and maybe even disable VBA or Visual Studio Tools add-ins. You can do all of that from dictionary control. Turning dictionaries on and off can actually be done without even logging out, and can be done without affecting any other users on the terminal server because you're not altering the dynamics.set launch file. If you want to update the launch file automatically, new to build 27 is launch file configuration, where you've got a number of rules where you can actually change settings on the launch file, so you can just make sure that they're pointing to the correct locations for paths, or you can reorder the products, whatever you need to do. You can even remove and add products automatically. If you've got multiple versions of a particular window, and sometimes you may want one version or the other version, so like project or original window, normally you'd have to have 2 users or change security to be able to do that. Power Tools allows you to actually select that on the fly, and you get a dialog that pops up and allows you to actually select which user or which window you particularly want to use. GP Power Tools remembers the system password. That functionality was added in GP 2018, but GP 2018 doesn't allow you to turn it off if you want. So Power Tools actually, prior to GP 2018, adds the feature, and after 2018 allows you to turn it off if you don't want it. So we do have the ability to control access to companies based on our configuration. So if you've got a multinational where you've got different, or a company which has different customizations, like different reports for different companies, so you might have a different report template, and you've got different reports dictionaries. This allows you that when you log into a particular company, particular install or shortcut to get into GP, that you only allow to see the company. So I log into Australia, I can only see Australian company. So you've also got the ability, if you're a developer or you're interested in how some of the code works, you can get Power Tools to give you the parameters from functions and procedures. This is really important because Microsoft is not updating the SDK as much as they should. So this actually allows us to get information that is not being updated by Microsoft. So the Power Tools itself was originally created as a support debugging tool to troubleshoot no repro issues, which basically means no one can work out what's happening, but you can see something wrong in the data. So Power Tools has a whole load of functionality where we can set up triggers, watch for events, capture logs, and actually identify the exact script where the problems are occurring, and then we can use that information to provide that to support or to a third-party developer, and they can use that to fix the problem. You've also got the ability, using triggers and scripts, and a combination of Dexterity, SQL, C# or VB.NET to create customizations. You can create self-service scripts. You don't need to use VBA if you don't want to. It works with the web client, and it works with modifier added fields and modal dialogues as well. So you can also create self-service scripts. So if you've got scripts that are particular, you might need to run on a regular basis, instead of having to ask your DBA to run it, you can just use Power Tools, create the script, create a parameter list so that it asks questions. You can hang it off a Windows menu if you wish, or hang it straight off the application level menus, and it can perform some sort of task. It can return the results, and you can even take further actions based on the results returned. You can create custom report writer functions, so if you need to get data onto a report and that you can't create it normally with relationships, instead of using VBA to do that, which won't work on the web client, you can use custom RW functions that will get you that data, and that will work on the web client. If you want to, you have the ability to create custom service web services, so you can actually make external calls into GP and perform actions. I've used this to create basically a transaction import functionality that was more powerful and flexible than the functionality that actually came from Microsoft. You can basically use this whatever you want to do. You can script whatever you want to. You can create custom schedule events, so we can have an event that runs daily, weekly, monthly, or every login, and you can make it do particular things, so generate reports automatically or whatever you wish it to do. If you're doing any development, you can actually prototype development inside Power Tools, get the scripts the way you want them, make sure they're working, and then you can actually use it to generate the code and copy and paste that straight into your final dictionary or into your product. So it's really good if you've got any developers on in-house. It does make the debugging experience better as well. It adds in the ability to change dictionary contexts without having to exit GP, which is what you'd normally have to do. You'd have to exit GP, change text INI settings, and come back. So this allows you to change it just by clicking on that window. If you ever move to a new server or create test environments, you probably know that all your logins get messed up. So Power Tools, with its database validation tool, has the ability to fix all the logins and make sure that all of the login and company data matches exactly to the SQL data and fixes any problems that it finds. Along with that, the database validation tool has the ability to look for tables with incorrect structures, and even if they've got data in them, it can actually fix them and make sure that they're in the correct state before you do an upgrade, and thus prevent the chance of upgrade errors. It also does a number of other things, for example, checking the account framework and removing references to missing products or companies from the Dynamics Utilities tables. If you do want to force a user to change passwords, the new Sql Login Maintenance window allows you in bulk to select a number of users and either reset their password or change the SQL Server options such as password policies, or change the status, whether they're active or inactive. And all of that you can do. Whenever it resets a password, it has the ability, because we stored the email on that other window, we can actually email the new passwords to the users. If you do want to copy data between systems, basically small amounts of data, so this can be used for copying data for support cases, just instead of sending the entire database, you can send small amounts of data, or even copying security setups from your test system once you've got it working the way you want into your live system. So it's not designed as to copy large amounts of data, but it uses XML and exports the data and then can be imported back in. So basically it's fairly cheap. It's sold as an annual subscription. You can have a free 30-day trial just by installing it, and it comes with 3 modules: administrator tools, developer tools, and database tools, and you can choose which of the modules you want. So that's basically the introduction. So how do we go for time? There we go. I said it would take about 20 minutes. So it's back at the beginning now, and my keyboard has gone to sleep. There we go. All right. So we can now pull up Power Tools and have a look at what people would like to see. So, have we got any requests on the line, Sean?
We have not yet. Sean may have, but I haven't seen any come through.
So,
I haven't, David, but if you feel like going through the, the benefits that you just walked through, some of those that I know end users would love and administrative folks would love, that'd be awesome if you could show off some of that cool stuff.
I was thinking the security one. So, so let me go into what I'm going to do is I'm going to start another session, and we can show you a little bit of the security functionality in action. Okay, so for a start, you can see I've got that longer company drop down. Okay, so there's my password expiry warning. You'll also notice that the green color coding because I'm in my test company. So if I go to sales here and sales transaction entry, for a start, this is one of the options where I've got the ability to choose which version. So I've got two versions of the window active at the moment. I'm going to choose the default one, which is the Dynamics one, but I can choose the other one. So that allows you to have multiple versions of the window accessible, and that can be controlled. One more message. Okay, so it was also set up as a test company, so I'm getting that message. Now this message is a Dynamics message, however PowerTools makes it very easy to enable and disable that. Okay, so on this window I'm actually going to try and from the additional menu I'm going to say create return, and straight away I'm getting a security privilege error. So unlike the normal error, I'm actually being told that I've got security access denied, and it's telling me the window that's been denied, both its technical and display name, and the dictionary ID and name that it's from. So I straight away have that information. Without PowerTools, you might be guessing. Sometimes the windows that you get the errors from is not the window you're trying to open. In the background, though, it automatically opens security profilers. That's a setting I've got to automatically open just before an error occurs so I can capture the error. I've trained my users so that if they ever get this message, they can export it to either to a file or email and they can send it to me. So let's save it. There we go. And now if I go down to here, you'll be able to see, because I've got the names on the toolbars, I can see which sessions belong to David and which ones belong to SA. So I'm going to go into SA, pull up PowerTools, open up the profiler, import the file that was just saved, which was the second, there we go, that one. And you'll see now I've got exactly the same error showing. It's showing me denied. It's telling me the window, it's in field service, create return. If I move across, you'll see it's telling me in the test company for David. So I'm going to, from here, select security information, and the security information window is open, and you'll see it says David's got no access. If I expand this, you'll see David has no access in either company. DynSA and SA do have access, but it can't be turned, you can see it's grey here, which is telling you that it is enabled because they're power users, so it can't be turned on and off. Lesson user 1 and 2 do not have access because they don't actually have access to this company, the test company. That's why it's greyed out. All right, so how can I give David access? Well, if I open up the system level, I can make them a power user. That's not going to happen. I can make them a super user, better, but still not going to happen. Or I can give them access to the TRX FSS RTO1 task, which, if I expand that, can be done by giving them RT agent or RT manager access. So if I double click on David, enter the password, and come down to RT agent, turn it on, save, and if I redisplay here, you'll see that now it says David's got access in the test company. So now if I tell David, I can give him a call or send him an email and say, now try again. And so he can basically come back up here, and if he goes back to create return, it now works. And that's how simple that is. So now if I had actually changed something that would have changed the security, David does have the option to come back in here and say refresh application navigation, and that will actually, without having to exit and come back in, it will update all the menus with what his changed access is now. All right, so I'm just going to turn that off for David, because if I forget to do that, my next time I demo, it doesn't look so good. Okay, so that's how easy it is to grant access. Let me show you how easy it is to take access away. So let's say that David is absolutely awful at maintaining his customers. So I'm going to pop into the cards, sales, and customer maintenance. And you'll see that he currently has access in both companies to customer maintenance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and have a look with the enhanced security. So now if I want to, I would have to take him out, or either if I change cards, that would affect anybody else that's using the card 0201 task, which we actually open that up, is used by accounting manager, AR clerk, bookkeeper, and operations manager. So if I was to actually make changes, that would affect anybody with those tasks and roles. And I can actually come in here and say, show me who's got a particular role, and it will show me who's in the clerk or AR clerk or AP clerk. So I can actually have a look in there. So if I want to make a change without having to make changes to tasks and roles so it doesn't affect anybody else, I can do that using the enhanced security window with deny-based security. I can come back in here and say cards, sales, customer. You'll see here he currently has access. So what I'm going to do now, just put that back to its normal view, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say he no longer has access to Fabricam and no longer has access to the test company, and you'll see that it's updated on the window here. He no longer has access. So now he's also really good at doing, I'm really bad at doing returns, so I'm going to come down here into security objects, document access, sales, and I'm going to take away access to returns from both companies. So the other thing is he keeps trying to go into this checklists area. So this is a window that cannot be removed by using security. It's actually exempt from security. This setup checklist window cannot be controlled by security. So you basically have no way of denying, hiding this from a user. With Power Tools, I can actually hide windows as well. So you'll see that instead of the checkbox, it has a radio button, but I can come in here and hide those. So now if I want to know what I've hidden, if I come into security hidden and security denied windows, this is showing me, if I go to all users, all companies, all users, all companies, this is showing me the things that I've just hidden. So the setup checklist was hidden, and the document access and the window that I denied access to. Now if I want to, I can print that out. It saves me having to look through the tree to find them. They're just here listed. I can use this, I can export that out, I can print it as well. For my demos, I'm going to actually mark all and delete them though, so that access is granted back, and that way my next demo will be good. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of both how you can use security to grant and security to deny.
David, for those who have never done that task before, the way your product does it, it just saves so much troubleshooting and time spent to remedy those painful modifications. So that's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, the way that Power Tools was created is I basically look for things that were a lot harder than they should have been, or things, things that like the database validation tool. After 13 years of supporting Dynamics and in particular taking all of those late night, or for you guys, late night upgrade cases where things had failed, I got a lot of experience about what things could go wrong with an upgrade. So I actually made a tool to look for and fix them before they go wrong. So I mean, that's what that's for, and that's the philosophy for all of Power Tools. It's there to solve your pain points. So just to show you that example with using Security Profiler to actually create a task and role, I can come in here and say start the capture, reset this, and then I can actually, as a SA, I can come in here and start performing the task. So I can actually open up the windows that the particular user is going to want. So let's open up class and the lookup for class and address and the lookup for address, and you can basically, let's choose a customer first. You can go through and open up all of the different windows that you're likely to need, including the reports. So I can even choose a customer first, even choose a report, print it to the screen. Now, with the remembering of the window positions, I know Sean wanted me to point this one out, that it also remembers the position and size of the screen output window, so you can actually position that where you want. and it will remember that for next time. So I've got all of that captured now. So if I go back to the profiler, you'll see I've got all of those tasks that I was doing captured. So then I can say, okay, you know, I don't want them to have access to this. I chose that by mistake. So I can come in here then and go, all right, security, stop capture, and I can now either add that to an existing task or create a whole new task. And if I want to, I can actually create a whole new role as well. So, all right. So you can basically use that to create tasks and roles by example. And you know, and if you've missed something, you just need to perform that one action that you've missed and add it back to the role that you were creating, or the task that you were creating. All right. So let's have a think about some other things we can show you. So I might as well just show you. I know that you guys are not necessarily developers, but what I will do is show you a little bit of really cool things that you can do with the development side of this. So I have here the vendor maintenance window. I'm going to use a modified version of this window, and I'm going to, so let me open the modified version. So this modified version adds on this additional field at the bottom here, and this protected field up here. Now, right now, there's no code running to actually make these fields work. So if I pull up a record, you'll see there's nothing actually in here. Now normally you'd use VBA to actually make that work, but VBA doesn't work on the web client. Also, if I do it with Power Tools, there is no deployment or upgrade steps. As soon as you hit the save button, the code is available and active on your system, and there's no need to go and install packages on every single workstation. There's no need to deal with upgrades. You just need to test it on a new version because the code will just work. So I'm going to come in here and let's pull up the project that actually runs that, which is this vendor UDF project. I'll start the triggers for the project. So now, normally you'd have those starting automatically, but now if I come back to purchasing, you'll see when I open up vendor and choose the modified one, you'll see now that this is now working. And, oh, I spelled that wrong, but I just did the world tour in Johannesburg, just came back from that last week. So, but we need to prepare this because we're going to be going to Summit in Orlando, and I'm going to be seeing all you guys there too, because I know you're going to go. So, but you can see now that's all working here, and it even has the ability to pick up or deal with system dialogues. For example, if I try to delete this, okay, I'm just going to skip that one because that's from a different demo, but it will come up. Hold on, and say continue. It says I can't delete the record because it's protected. So it actually, that is Power Tools code that is actually looking at the delete dialog and saying no, it dismisses it and says because it's protected I cannot delete it. So basically you can write your customizations, you can have the code there running. So let me pull up another one for you. If I go to, here I might, actually no, let's go to, back to projects. So I'll give you an example of some self-help scripts. So we've got a couple that we can show you. Okay, let's activate the SOT renumbering one, and I'll activate the batch maintenance ones. So, okay, so a recent case that came up on, I think it was on the GPUG forums, we had a user that was complaining that they were inserting new lines at the beginning of at the top of their records, and they were continuously adding new lines, and eventually you can only go 14 times if you keep inserting above a line. Eventually it will say to you that you can't insert any more lines, and that's because the line numbering has actually run out of available numbers that it can do, because every time you insert above you're halving the number. So the question they raised was, can you renumber? So I'm actually going to pull up a different transaction. Let me go and save this guy and pull up. There's a transaction I was using before. Show me all. And get rid of that. Okay. So here's invoice. I think it was 28. that one. So this one has quite a few lines in it, so it's actually a good one to show. So basically, you can come up to the internet in additional here and say renumber, and you'll see that it is actually renumbered it. Now this time the sequence was not actually wrong, but what I'll do is this particular demo or customization is actually added also to the utilities. I can come in here, I can say I want to renumber an invoice, I can choose that same invoice. So this is how, you know, a self-service script can be created. You can hang it straight off the application level menus if you want. So, oops, 23, 28, let me save that one and choose 28 again. There to go, 28. And I'm going to renumber it to, let's say 4096 gaps. So when I renumber that, has it done it? What are you doing? Yes, it has. Okay, there we go. So it's now, you can see it's numbered it to going up in 4096. So basically, if I was to come back here and pull up that transaction again, now what I actually did as well is if you actually get the error message that says you can't add a line, because of this, it actually will automatically, instead of, it captures that error message, dismisses that dialog and offers you the choice to renumber there and then. So you don't even have to go and find the option, it will just add it for you. But then you can see it's renumbered it from 4096 gaps back to the 16384, which is this default. So that's just an example of a self-service script. Another one is if we pull up batches, mouse is going to sleep on me, thank you. Okay, so on this I have the ability here to choose some additional things. For example, I can say move transactions. I want to move all of the quotes, or say all fulfillment orders from this full order batch to let's say the CA credits batch, and I can say move them, and it should have done it. Waiting on the window's not popped up. So if we go back and do it again, you should see, okay, there's that. It's moved 9 transactions. So if we go back up here and go back to fulfillment order and pull up this list, you'll see that the 9 transactions are now sitting in CA credits and all the batch totals have been moved across, and I can then actually move them back to where they were. Oops, so from CA credits to fulfill orders, and okay, and so that's brought them across. So alright, so that's just showing some self-service scripts, and you can basically, we've got one here that changes process holds, so you can actually say take everything that's process hold, you know, one particular process hold and change it to another one. In a batch for all particular transactions, and another one that we've got is changing requested ship dates. Need to close, cancel that, and you've got the option here of choosing a batch and changing all of the requested ship dates in that batch. I think it was, yeah, only for quotes was this particular example. So basically anything that you can think of, you can create as a self-service script. You can even make scripts that you know, if I was to pull up, okay, if we go into the SQL executor and I pull up, these are published scripts that have been published, and you can control who you publish them to. So they can't see the script at the moment, and you can't edit it. As an administrator, I would have the ability to drill down and actually see what the script is, which is in this case just a select statement based on input from a parameter list. So if I execute this, I get the parameter list, I can choose my range of customers, I can hit OK, it can perform whatever action I want. I can then also use this to perform other actions. For example, this has got a go-to that is defined to open customer maintenance, so if I double click on American, you'll see that it goes to the American. If I double click on Aaron Fitz, it changes to Aaron Fitz. So you can make these tasks do anything. So one example that I've seen was it got a list for an item of all of the sites that it was assigned to that were now had a value of 0, and you could then select, multi-select, you could click multiple ones and then say perform the action which would actually unassign that item from those sites now that the quantities had reached 0. So, all right. So that's a little bit of sort of the scripting and customization capabilities. So I can show you, we're going on time, 43. So, so Sean, more administrative tools, or do I show some database validation?
Maybe some DB validation.
Alrighty. So this is the tool that fixes your data to make sure that everything's okay. So right now, if I pop in here, it looks at everything. I've got lots of green ticks. We're all good. So I have a script that we can run, and so let me just get the scripts. These guys here. All right. These are scripts that you should not run on a live system because they basically screw everything up. But database validation can find all of those problems and fix them. So if I come back in here and just say redisplay, you'll see now I've got a whole load of errors. So let me run through the steps. You'd basically first go into fix users, and this is showing me the problem. So if, for start, the DynSA user is not doesn't exist, so I'm going to create that as a login and give it a password. It needs to be the owner of the databases, so I will tell it to be the owner of the databases. I do have references to a test company which I'm not using, so I'm going to ask it to clean that up, and that's a little bit like the clear company script that you can get from Microsoft, but better. This will also create the user ID for DynSA and make sure that they have access to all the companies. So I also have some extra users that are in my tables. So Dynamics says these users exist, SQL says they don't. So I'm going to keep lesson user 2, but I'm going to get rid of these test users. I don't use them. So I'm going to let it send a password to lesson user 2 to tell him he's been reset. I'm going to automatically generate the password, even though I can manually type one in if I wanted. I'm going to enforce the password policy and get them to change it on the next login. It's also going to look for any problems with the company access records, make sure everybody belongs to Dyn group, and make sure that all the database users in SQL match the company access. So if I hit process, telling me other users are logged in, that is fine. So I'm not going to continue right now, but I will log out David. Okay, so let's try that again. Process. All right, you probably, I heard it, but you guys probably didn't. It did send an email that should show up on my Outlook very shortly. And I can also get the report of the passwords generated. Oops, what have we done? There we go. So there's a list of the passwords generated, and there's the email telling me it's been reset. Just came in again, so there's telling me what my password is, and that I need to change it, so I can log in again and make that change. All right, you'll notice now that a lot of all the red marks are gone. So, okay. So next step then is I can say fix utilities. So I can come in here. This is going to show me issues such as products that don't exist or databases that don't exist. So this is records in the DB utilities tables. These records are the sorts of things that can make Dynamics utilities try to look for products or companies that don't exist and mess up your upgrade process. So the idea is you clean those out so that you've only got records in there for products that actually do exist and companies that do exist. I can also look at the account frameworks. So this is showing me the physical size of the account frameworks plus what's in brackets is what is actually used, and that's in the different companies. It is highlighting that the Dynamics database has a different value than the what's in the application or in the company databases. So I'm going to actually use this to just fix what's in the Dynamics database so it matches what the settings should be. So that'll fix that. Now, not advertised here, but you can actually do this the other way, and you can tell it to, if you update what's in the Dynamics tables, you can tell it to update the dictionary, and then when you run the fix tables, it will identify that the tables have got the wrong structures, and then you can ask it to fix the tables. The side effect of that is that it can actually change your account or increase your account framework as a side effect. It's one of the things that database validation can do that I don't really tell people, but it can actually do that. So if I was to go into fixed tables now, there's nothing here to fix yet. I need to say process. This is now reading all of the tables out of the dictionaries and looking at SQL and finding out which ones exist in both Dexterity and in SQL. So it's showing me which ones it's found. So I'm just going to, for speed, turn off the 2. So now I can say is, now that we know that these tables exist in both SQL and Dexterity, let's compare the structures and validate those and make sure that they're correct. So now this is actually now looking at the definitions in SQL and checking that they match correctly.
That's awesome.
And then it will give me a report. I'm not that interested in the report because I can actually get this by expanding here. So I can see these are all the tables that are correct. This is an incorrect duplicate, which basically means I have 2 table definitions, but one of them matched, so the other one must be an old definition that's not important anymore. So I'll ignore that. And the other one then is this is what is actually important, where it's actually found problems with the tables. It's called them structure incorrect. If I look at this one, you'll see that SQL is saying that this column is 99. Dexterity says it's 79. That's not too bad because it's bigger, so it just means that it is different, but it won't truncate anything. If it goes the other way, though, that's actually an issue because you could lose data, and you don't get an error if the SQL is smaller than what Dexterity thinks it should be. Here I've got Dexterity thinks these should be 5, but SQL says they're 9. So if I pop into fixed tables, I'll actually get a list here, and like this one here on the top left one has no data in it, so it's really easy. I can just say drop it, recreate it. The one on the right has data, so if I ask it to fix that, it will back it up. It will back up the data, drop it, recreate it, and restore the data for you. It also is noticed, it must have picked up that some tables don't have the access to the DIME group SQL role, so it's actually going to fix those as well. So if I hit continue, it makes those changes, and we're all fixed. And now, if I now exit, I will actually get a report of all the changes it made. And you'll notice that resized automatically because of the power tools, but this is all the changes it made, basically my upgrade would now go smoothly, or my test system is now running properly with all the logins created. The other thing is, because it creates the logins inside GP, they are encrypted so that they're still secure and cannot be used outside of GP. If you do it manually with the steps that Microsoft normally give you, they're not encrypted, you don't have the ability to randomly generate automatically and email those out to the users. So this is basically makes everything a lot easier to deal with. So, all right, we've got about 10 minutes left. Have we got any questions at this stage?
We do actually. We have one question. How is this tool purchased and installed, and can we do it ourselves?
Okay, so that's a great question. So you can download it and install it quite happily. It's the install is pretty well next, I agree, next, finish. You can it does need to be installed on all workstations for it to work properly. So if you do have other workstations, it is possible to run a silent install and install it on those workstations with commands if you've got the infrastructure to do that. There is a blog article that shows you different ways that you can install it. You can purchase that through your partner, so through Artis, and basically they will organize it. Once you install it, you can actually activate a 30-day trial period, which is free. You don't need anybody involved for that. Once you're ready to, once you're happy that you like it, everything works, you can choose which modules you want to register, let Artis know, they will organize the purchase, the reg keys come down automatically over the internet, and you're live. It works on a subscription basis. The cost for one module is per year is $500 US, 2 modules is $900 US, and for 3 modules is $1,300 US. So to give you an idea, the features that we saw, the logging capabilities and screenshots, they're part of the system module which you get when you register anything else. All of the resource information and security features you saw, plus all of the user enhancements such as the automatic logout and the user control, activity logging, login limits, company filter, window position, all of that is part of administrator tools. The scripting capabilities, which fall under cards and under inquiry, are the the developer tools. And then underneath utilities, where we've got the import export, the database validation, and the Sql Login Maintenance, that's part of the database tools. So you can basically choose which bits you want, and the reg keys come down automatically, and it's active on your system, and you just renew it each year.
Great, thank you.
So
David, your product actually reaches out and checks for updates on its own, does it not?
It does. It has the ability to do that. That ability can be turned off and on. You basically, when you first install it, you actually tell it on how often you'd like it to check, and it's not where if you turn it off, you'll sort of never get the notifications. When it only notifies administrator users, so normal users don't get to see the message if it pops up. And if it does pop up, you do have the ability to say, okay, I acknowledge that, and don't tell me about that update again. So you can dismiss it, and it won't ever actually make an update automatically, because that requires you to make the conscious decision of updating your system. But it will tell you that an update's there. And the last two updates released this year, Build 26 and Build 27, added a heap of new features, and so it is definitely worth keeping your system up to date. You don't have to update the whole of GP, just the GP Power Tools, to get all of the new features. If you have a subscription, you're allowed to, you're entitled to whatever the latest build is, and that includes the hot fixes that come out if anything's found, or we make minor tweaks, and the big builds where we actually add lots of new features. So so the ability to, actually I might as well show you, this is the ability to choose which window you open. So if I open a lookup here, do I want the nice looking smart list one, or do I want the old GP Dynamics one? So I can just choose if I've got multiple windows. That's a nice feature that you can do, and you don't have to swap logins. So that's one of the new features added. But if you go to my blog, let me pull up the blog. So if you go to winthropdc.com, from there it's actually fairly easy to go into Winthrop Development Consultants, and you can see the products in there. If I go into Power Tools, it has this portal section which is on the blog. So it's just winthropdc.com/gppt for GP Power Tools, and that will take me over to portal. It should have done that automatically. I have no idea why it didn't. And on this portal, if you scroll down, it gives you a little bit of an idea of what each of the different tools. So it does have a list of all the releases and what's in them, and a FAQ with questions in it. So it also has access to that benefits presentation that you saw earlier, if you want to show that to anybody, and a brochure that you can download. It also can take you back to the downloads page where you can download Power Tools. It's available for any version from GP 2010 through to GP 2018, and that includes the R2s. So there's 5 versions of it available, all currently Build 27. So anything else?
Great stuff, David. So just want to be clear. So some ISVs, they offer their product by a low entry point, and then it's by user count or something like that. Yours is by organization, correct?
Yes, it's on a per system basis, so it doesn't make any difference how many companies, how many users, or how many workstations you've got. That's $500 flat for your company, for just the administrator tools, I should say. Up to $1,300 if you buy all 3 modules. Yeah. So just for example, automatic logout. That's a great feature. It's just a matter of turning it on here. You can get the tester dialog. It will give you a countdown. You can even tell it, if you've got a user who keeps cancelling this dialog, you can actually just go into the settings here and say disable that dialog for a particular user so that they don't get the warning anymore. But you've got, in fact, you can see here this little users button. It's throughout the system, so you can actually control a lot of different features on a per user, per company basis. So you can actually come in and turn the feature on and off. You can even say, instead of enabling it, if I do this, it enables it for SA. If I come down in here and say exclude, it's now enabled for everybody except SA. So if you've got your financial controller who doesn't want to have to log back into GP every time they come back to their machine because it's logged them out because they've been away too long, you could exclude them from the automatic logout. So, okay.
Excellent stuff.
So feel free to install. If you've got a test environment, that's definitely easy to install on. You can install it, activate your trial, activate the 30-day trial, have a play. It's the hold my puppy dog technique, because once you've played with it, you're not going to want to give it back. So I'm quite happy for you to have a play.
Fabulous. Well, thank you, David, again, and thank you all for joining us this morning. Reach out to myself, Lisa, or Chelsea, whoever is your client strategy manager, and we'd be happy to answer any questions for you or get you started with that free trial. Everyone have a great day. Thank you.